In the last video, we saw the big boss of the Heavenly Demon sect send his officer to take out our hero. If you missed parts 1 and 2 of this crazy saga, hit the icon up top to catch up. Now let's jump right into the next part. Boom, Dane's off again, on a mission to hunt down our stubborn protagonist. Dude's just digging his own grave at this point. We're already caught up to the last chapter, so brace yourselves for fresh updates after every 3 chapters. Oh, and don't forget to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and drop your spicy thoughts in the comments. Back at Genta, Saron asked Rosal again to speak up, unless he was, deaf. But Rosal? Nah, he just sipped his drink like it was a lazy Sunday, then casually ordered his droid to test Saron's strength. In a flash, the droid zipped behind Saron. Blink, and you'd miss it. She tried to react, but it was too late. That droid had her by the neck like it was some kind of basketball. Saron's eyes went wide. Like, how in the galaxy is this droid so fast? Rosal, cool as ever, put down his teacup and said, "Stop resisting. Answer my questions, and maybe I'll spare you a life of eternal misery." But Saron? She wasn't having any of it. She broke free from the droid's grip and told Rosal where he could shove his questions. Rosal was stunned. She just pulled off some next-level adaptive move. She whipped out her weapon, sending a whirlwind of energy flying, but the droid was ready. It blocked, counterattacked, and boom, landed a hit on her hand. Now Saron was on defense. Rosal calmly reminded her, it's pointless to struggle. This droid's got data on all the martial arts in the world. After clashing with the droid for a bit, Saron realized he wasn't bluffing. But giving up? Not in her vocabulary. She zeroed in on the droid, aiming to take it down. But the droid dodged like it was a game of tag, then bam, punched the attitude right out of her, sending her flying like a ragdoll. But our girl Saron's tough. She stood right back up, wiped the dirt off, and got ready to bust out some new sword technique. Rosal had no clue what she was up to, but he knew it was time to focus. Saron was drenched in sweat, knowing this fight wasn't going to be a walk in the park. Her regular moves? Useless. The droid zipped behind her again, trying to pull the same sneaky trick, but Saron was ready this time. She blocked the hit with her weapon, cutting the damage down to a cool 10%. Using the impact, she flipped midair, already prepping her next move. The droid lunged forward, and Saron fired her weapon like a bullet. But the droid? Nah, it slapped that attack away like it was nothing and rushed in for a head-on strike. Normally, Saron might have panicked, but today, she was chill. This was all part of her plan. Just as the droid's hand came in for a palm strike, Saron's weapon coiled around its arm like a snake. Before it knew what hit it, her weapon sliced right through the droid's hand and bam, straight into its head. The lights went out, and the droid hit the floor. Rishal, wide-eyed, shattered his cup in shock. She had just pulled off the Dark Heaven Blood Dragon Dagger, a technique straight from the supposedly wiped-out Sichuan Tang clan. The droid hit the deck, or whatever the robot equivalent of died is, but before it could fully strike, the Force still managed to mess Saron up on the inside. Rishal, still processing what just happened, demanded to know her real identity. But Saron? She wasn't interested in chat time. Things were getting real. Wait a sec, Rishal muttered, his mind blown. The Tang clan was wiped out 10 years ago. How do you know their secret arts? But Saron? She was already powering up, her energy levels spiking to max. Desperate times call for max-level Xuanwu arts. And she was about to show Rishal what real power looked like. As Rishal was still reeling from the shock of her moves, she tapped into the Xian Wu Divine Arts, a secret technique only the Tang clan's top dogs knew about. His mind? Blown again. But Saron was done with the chatter. "Shut it with your useless analysis," she shouted, launching a technique that shot right up into the sky. Rishal's jaw dropped even lower. He recognized that move. It was a sky-dominating technique that let the user attack from everywhere. This killer move? It's called the Infinite Rain Blossom Technique, like a storm of falling rain, spreading attacks everywhere with explosions lighting up the sky. Meanwhile, over on the ship where the matron was chilling, Elena was deep in conversation with her. She explained that her meeting with Rochelle? Yeah, it was weird. She definitely made it to Manhwa to get some kind of request, but then boom, out like a light. Next thing she knew, she was face to face with him, and she still had no idea how. The matron? She was on top of it, saying it was some kind of unilateral teleportation trick. Rochelle had told Elena not to freak out since he brought her there to grant her wish, but she was totally lost. He went on to say he knew exactly what she wanted, to get stronger, to have the world beneath her feet. After all, she didn't earn the title of 8-foot fighting ghost for nothing. She'd been turning spaceships into duel arenas, chasing one battle after another. But the closer she got to her goal, the further away it seemed. Despair hit hard, and she was crying herself to sleep every night. That's when Rochelle stepped in to give her the strength to finally look down on the world. She wasn't having any of it, though. Her killing intent flared, and she demanded Rochelle tell her who he was and what he really wanted. Rochelle just stood up, saying the only way she'd understand was through battle. The fact that he knew everything about her, that only made her angrier. She told the matron that they did fight, but no matter what, nothing worked. Sound familiar? That's exactly what was happening to Seo Young right now. No matter how flashy her moves, she was still getting wrecked. The biggest plot twist? Rochelle was actually a modified droid. And when Elena had been defeated, Rochelle had dropped a bombshell. He was going to make her as strong as he was, because she was his daughter. Flash forward to the present. Rochelle has Seo Young by the neck, demanding answers. If she cooperated, he'd make her frail body strong, just like he did with Elena, but it came at a price. She'd have to abandon her useless mind. He called it steel fortification, and even the matron was surprised. And right as all this madness was going down, the showdown we've all been waiting for was about to kick off. Sunya? She picked up something on the radar just as she was about to go searching for Seo Young. What popped up in front of them? A ship. And Robert, clueless as ever, furiously yelled at Sunya to tell the ship to move. Otherwise, he'd just smash it to pieces. But Sunya was like, "Whoa, chill." She explained that even though the ship looked small, it was actually a Celestial-class battleship, leagues above theirs. Oh, and it belonged to the Heavenly Demon sect. Yeah, no smashing that. A little later, Dane showed up on the S-Devil ship, standing right in front of Mach Jeene, who, by the way, was casually munching on a sausage like he'd woken up after 2,000 years just to have a snack. Robert, trying to keep it polite, asked Dane what a Heavenly Demon sect member was doing here, but Dane wasn't in the mood to chat. Instead, the short guy marched up to Mach Jeene and, with all the confidence in the world, introduced himself as the first-class officer of the Disaster Safety Headquarters Central Committee of the Heavenly Demon Sect. Then he sat down like he owned the place and told Mach Jeene to just speak casually with him. Robert's brain nearly short-circuited. This kid was a first-class officer? That's like super high up in the Heavenly Demon Sect hierarchy. Dane, getting straight to business, told Mach Jeene he had a big favor to ask. Stay out of the mess that was unfolding. The mastermind behind it all was a guy named Rishal Archimand. He used to be one of the top scientists, leading the charge on developing military weapons for a human government contractor in a project called Steel City. But Rishal went too far with his unethical experiments and got kicked out. Then he vanished. Now he's back, hiding here and running some mega-scale experiments. Turns out, Rishal didn't just get expelled. He was secretly funded, possibly by factions within the human government's military. After Dane finished dropping all this hot info, Mach Jeene looked at Sunya and casually asked for water. Yep, water. Not exactly the reaction Dane was expecting after that info bomb. Dane was flabbergasted. Who is this guy? But it was Robert who was really shook. He pointed out that if a military faction was involved, then this whole thing ran way deeper than just some rogue scientist. Dane confirmed, saying this was way beyond what civilians could handle, and they needed to stay out of it. Robert, still fuming, shot back. What about our captain? She's been kidnapped. Dane, colder than a snowstorm, shrugged and replied, all you can do is pray for her. That hit a nerve. Robert slammed the table, furious. Pray? That's nonsense. We're rescuing her, and I don't care who you are. If you try to stop us, it's not going to end well for you. Mach Jeene, having just finished his water, casually chimed in. Look, I'm not trying to get involved, but I'm definitely not following your orders. Then, eyeing Dane, he asked, why are you giving us all this intel? You're clearly trying to use us to dodge responsibility. Mach Jeene thought to himself, this kid, barely out of diapers, thinks he can manipulate me? Dane, a little ruffled, asked Mach Jeene, who are you, noble one? Mach Jeene wasn't having it and just threw the question back, asking if that's why Dane came. Dane? Speechless. So, Mach Jeene stood up, stating that if Dane wasn't willing to spill the full truth, then there was no point in continuing this. Turning away, Dane pressed further, asking, are you sure you have no ties to the Heavenly Demon sect? Mach Jeene, cool as ever, didn't hesitate. None. Dane, standing on a chair now, said, all right, I'll take your word for it. For now. But I just want to confirm, if you're really not connected to the sect, Your next moves have nothing to do with them. Mach Jeene nodded, understanding the drill. With that, Dane made his exit. As Mach Jeene watched him leave, he couldn't help but feel a bit relieved. There were still talents in the Heavenly Demon sect, though they were clearly a little too green for his taste. Meanwhile, Robert was gearing up to search for Sunyoung. She agreed, but pointed out that their coordinates had shifted. Instead of heading to Moon Cicerus, they were now bound for Moon Genta. And guess who sent those coordinates? Dane, of course. Back on Moon Genta, things were looking bleak for Seoyoung. After getting stomped by Rochelle, she found herself dragged into an operating room. Waking up groggy, she groaned. "What are you planning?" Rochelle, surprised to see her awake so soon, smirked. "Impressive. Waking up this fast. Your noble bloodline must be something special, lady of the Sichuan Tang clan." Seoyoung, still groggy but defiant, asked again, "Where are we? And what are you planning to do to me?" Rochelle, in full creepy villain mode, reassured her with a sinister smile. "Don't worry, I'm going to free you from all your pain." His plan? To wipe her memories, even the darkest parts, and turn her into an iron gangster, a mindless puppet who only knows obedience. Seoyoung naturally tried to resist, but Rochelle just chuckled. "Futile," he said. "I've blocked all your meridians, paralyzing your nervous system. Your body won't respond to you anymore. You're just a good pet waiting for orders now." But even in this helpless state, Seoyoung wasn't giving up. She fought hard. Rochelle, still calm, insisted it was pointless. Until she appeared right in front of him. Blood flowed from her eyes like crimson tears as she hissed, "Don't be foolish. You might kill members of the Sichuan Tang clan, but you'll never dominate us." Before Rochelle could react, Seoyoung plunged her hand into his chest, her touch like death itself. Poison flowed from her hand, melting his skin on contact. She revealed the poison as pigeon blood poison, a deadly gift given to every Tang clan member at birth, meant to be used in their final moments. "The more my heart burns, the stronger the poison becomes," she said, watching Rochelle's body begin to dissolve. "It can melt anything, even metal." Rochelle, now trembling in fear, tried to scramble away, but Seoyoung wasn't letting him go. "The stronger my emotions, the deadlier the poison, and I'm ready to take you down with me." But just as she was about to finish him off, a familiar foe, the droid she defeated earlier, came out of nowhere, slicing her hand clean off. Blood sprayed across the room, and before Seoyoung could react, an alarm blared, signaling the arrival of an intruder. And who's the intruder? Yep, it's our big guy Robert. He found himself face to face with hundreds, maybe thousands of droids, charging at him with swords in hand. Robert, not one to back down, turned to Mach Jeene, full of adrenaline. "I got this, you go save the captain." Mach Jeene, without a word, zoomed off into action, diving straight into the hole the droids were pouring out from. Bang! He blew up the hole, sealing off the flow of droids, leaving the swarm that had already emerged for Robert to deal with. Robert stood there, speechless. Couldn't you have helped a little more before leaving? But there was no time to complain. It was just him in a sea of droids now, and he had no choice but to fight his way through. Meanwhile, Rishal was glued to his screen, despite sporting a gnarly hole in his stomach. Over in the battlefield, Robert was holding the line like a boss, unleashing his MZCT-106 recoilless laser cannon and TTR-8 automatic laser multi-missile launcher, mowing down droids left and right. When they tried to swarm him, he activated his anti-gravity rocket and launched into the air, performing a jaw-dropping area of effect attack that sent droids flying. Beside Rishal, one of the droids noted, "That gear looks like it's from Special Forces, but totally outdated. This guy's not an active soldier, he's a retired one." Rishal furrowed his brow, wondering if he had underestimated Robert. He ordered the droid to take care of Robert and handle the rest of the chaos. But then a violent tremor shook the ground. The droid reported, "The intruder has entered District 8. Within moments, it updated, "Intruder now moving into District 7. To Rishal's shock, the intruder zipped through all the districts straight to District 1 so fast that the droid couldn't pinpoint the entry location. Rishal's jaw dropped. Just then, the droid attempted to reassess the intruder's position, but before it could finish, it shattered into a million pieces. Rishal rubbed his eyes in disbelief as the animated bodies froze in place, and a hole opened up. Out stepped our big guy, Mach Jeene, looking as casual as ever, not a scratch on him. He strolled toward Rishal, who was too stunned to speak. Mach Jeene completely ignored him and walked over to check on Saron, who was still tied up. Rishal snapped back into action and demanded, "Identify yourself." But Mach Jeene didn't even flinch. He turned his cold gaze to Saryong's battered form and declared, "Richial ruined this young girl's life. He has no respect for anyone, making him nothing but a monster." Rishal was at a loss for words, caught off guard by Mach Jeene's fierce stare. "I said, identify yourself," he shouted again, irritation creeping into his voice. But Mach Jeene remained silent. Instead, he raised his hand, activating the weapon Saryong had used. With an icy tone, he told Rishal, "I refuse to converse with anything non-human." Swoosh! The weapon whirred to life, cleanly slicing through Rishal's ear and into his hand. Shock waves rippled through him. Mach Jeene just pulled off void manipulation, a trick only the transcendent elite could pull off. Even more mind-boggling was the fact that Rishal couldn't even analyze Mach Jeene. There was no sign of an internal energy drive anywhere. Is this dude using ancient martial arts? Rishal pondered, panic creeping in as he realized how dire his situation had become. Here he was still reeling from Saryong's earlier attacks, and Mach Jeene was looking all too ready to rumble. Mach Jeene pointed his sword at Rishal, smirking. "Not only are you non-human, but you're also not a real warrior. Useless thoughts in the middle of a fight? Really?" Fuming, Rishal lunged at him, snarling, "Shut up!" But before he could land a hit, Mach Jeene effortlessly sliced off his hand and leg, sending them flying like confetti. Rishal stared in disbelief at the remnants of his limbs, bewildered by how it had happened. "Consider this payback for what you did to the girl," Mach Jeene stated coolly, the intensity of his killing intent rising like a storm. "Now let's talk about the cost of pissing me off." Rishal felt the pressure, first Saryong from the Sichuan Tang clan, and now this powerhouse. With his internal energy drive barely above 40%, victory felt impossible. Desperation kicked in, and he cranked his drive to the max, ignoring the system warnings blaring in his head. What has this world come to? Mach Jeene wondered, watching Rishal's frantic maneuvers. Suddenly, Saryong jolted awake, shouting, "Mach Jeene, you need to kill him before he self-destructs." Caught off guard, Mach Jeene turned around, unsure of his next move. But before he could decide, Rishal hit the self-destruct button, and boom! The explosion rocked the facility, sending debris flying everywhere. Thank you for watching. I want to express my gratitude to those who have subscribed to my channel. I encourage you to support me by subscribing and joining to my channel, and I will be Manhwa Recap videos in every day. Thank you for your support, and I look forward to seeing you in the next installment.